So today we're doing something that I didn't put the title up yet. I was just going to drop you a hint and say it's the opposite of squaring. And then see first if people can remember what squaring was. And then we'll try to transition into the opposite. So if I'm talking about squaring, anybody have a memory of what I'm talking about?
It's like the same number times itself.
It is some number times itself. So, for example, 7 times 7. 7 times 7 makes 49. That's an example of squaring. There's another way that we could write this that we did a month ago, maybe-ish.
7 with like a 1?
We could put a 7, but not a 1. A 2.
Oh,
That's a different way to write that same problem. We did more stuff like, it's more beneficial for probably something like that. If I wanted to write that problem a different way, how could I write this problem?
6 with a 5 on it.
6 with a 5 up there. What were those numbers called? Anybody remember what this was called or what this was called?
The big number is the base.
The big number is called the base. So 7 is the base of this problem because there's a couple 7s. 6 is the base of this question because there's a bunch of 6s.
And the 2 is an exponent.
The 2 is called an exponent. Counts how many numbers we have. That 5 is an exponent. There's a synonym word for exponent that's just as good. Power was in there. How did squaring fit into that exponent power lesson? What was squaring about? It's a special word that meant a special power.
Squaring 2.
Square meant there were 2 of them. What other special word did we have not affecting today's lesson?
Cube.
Cube. Cube meant
3.
3. Okay, so what we're doing today is the opposite of this. Squaring turns 7 into 49. Something we're going to learn about today is going to turn 49 back into 7. Does anybody know what that is called? That is called square rooting. So today we're talking about square roots. Square roots is just the opposite of squaring. If I ask you to square root 49, I'm asking you to turn it back into 7. Does anybody know what the symbol for that looks like? Is that a hand? No? Change your mind? Yeah, it's kind of like if you put together a check marks and a division box. So if check marks and division boxes like got married and had children, that's be a square root sign would look like. Because square root of 49 is 7. Can somebody give me another, we'll build a list of the ones that we'd be able to do. Can somebody give me another number other than 49 that we can square root without too much trouble?
12 and 6.
No, you're off track maybe. 144 is probably the biggest one you'd feel comfortable doing.
Oh,
What's the square root of 144? 12. Why is the square root of 144 12? 12 times 12 makes 144. Somebody else name me another one that we can do the square root of. Yeah. Never mind. Another number we can do a square root of. Yeah.
4.
4. What is the square root of 4?
2.
2. That's on the lower end of things probably. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 makes 4.
10,000?
What would that be? 100. I'm going to go not that high, but I agree with you. Somebody else? We'll try to get everybody to give me one eventually.
121.
121, what'll that make? 11. Square root of 121 is 11, because 11 times 11 is 121.
100.
100, what's 100 make?
10.
100 makes 10. Because 10 times 10 is 100, yeah.
81 is
81 would make 9. Because 9 times 9 is 81.
36.
36 makes 6, that's true. Because 6 times 6 is 36. We got 144 already. Yeah. Okay, 25 makes 5, I agree with that. Got another one? 64 makes 8, I agree with that.
7 makes 49.
Well, 49 can turn into 7, we got that one. Did we get you yet at all? You think of the one we're missing? Can you think of one we're missing?
64.
You got that one, 64 made 8.
42.
And that 42 is going to be a sort of a misfit, because there's nothing that can exactly get us to 42. Go again. 9, what'll 9 make? 3. Why is the square root of 9 3?
Because 3 times 3
3 times 3 is going to get us that 9. Neither of you think of who we're missing yet? We're missing a couple. No.
16.
Okay, 16 will get you 4. Okay, 16 gets us 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. Who else we may be missing?
1.
1. Okay, what's the square root of 1?
1.
1, because 1 times 1 makes 1. Let's go 1 more. What's the square root of 0? Why? 0 times 0 makes 0. This part of the world right here, oh, those numbers are all called perfect squares.
Wow.
There's not a lot of perfect squares up to 144. There's only 12 of them. Well, 13 of them, if we count 0 in the list. But most numbers aren't perfect squares. Every once in a while you run into a perfect square. Are there perfect squares that aren't in my list?
No.
Yeah, like which one did we mention, but I didn't put it up here because it was bigger than what I wanted at the time. Yeah, Quentin had a 10,000 made 100, and I was like, I don't know that I want to count all the way up to 100. 37 times 37, whatever that might be, that is a perfect square. The square root of it would make the 37 back. But that's the main theme of the day. Square roots, half the lesson is devoted to doing the ones that are perfect squares. Question about those? The other half of the lesson is asking you to do ones that aren't perfect squares, and that's sort of like difficult to do. You can't give me an exact answer for the square root of 12. Why not?
Because there's like 2 digits, like 6 and 2 go into it.
Yeah, like 6 goes into it, 2 goes into it, 3 and 4 go into it. There's lots of stuff that goes into it. Can anybody give me a guess of about how much the square root of 12 would be? You're not going to be able to give me an exact answer for it, but like about how big? Yeah, disagree?
Actually, no.
Yes? About 3.5. I like that. Why did you say 3.5?
Because 3 and 4 go into it, but like 3 and 4 like halfway between.
Yeah, I could see that. What I would do is try to place 12 into the list over here. If we look at our list of perfect squares, 12 would fit in right about here. Okay? 12's bigger than 9. 3 times 3 is too small. It's not as big as 16, meaning 4 times 4 is too big. So what the homework is going to ask you to do is just say that it's between 3 and 4. They're going to want to know what 2 numbers is in between. But they want these numbers to be in a row. Okay? You don't want to say it's somewhere between 1 and a million. There's a lot of stuff between 1 and a million, right? So we're not going to say like, oh, it's between 2 and 6. Well, it is between 2 and 6. But the best answer you can give me for now is to say it's somewhere between 3 and 4. Because 3 times 3 comes in a little too small. 4 times 4 comes in a little bit too big. This answer would be between 3 and 4. In reality, this is going to be a decimal number that's never going to end. It's never going to repeat. What other number did we have recently like that? It's the first number you've ever heard of probably like that. Pi. Pi was a number, never ends, never repeats. It's called an irrational number. Sometimes it's called a transcendental number. There's different names for those kinds of strange numbers. This is going to be another example of an irrational number. If we made it into a decimal, it would never end, never repeat. If you don't believe me, borrow a calculator from somebody, punch it in, and you'll see it'll fill your whole screen, and there won't be a pattern to it. But it's pretty close to 3.5. That was a pretty good guess. So for 40, they're going to want us to decide what two numbers this is between. Anybody have a thought? What would the 40 fall between?
5 and 8.
It is between 5 and 8, but we can narrow it out. We'd rather get two numbers that are in a row. It's even closer than between 5 and 8. It'd be between 6 and 7. Because if we go looking for 40 in this list of perfect squares,
Right there.
this is about where we live. 40 is between these numbers, so the answer has to be between these numbers. 6 times 6 fell a little bit short. 7 times 7 is a little bit too high. It's going to be in between those numbers. So for 80, who could get you close to 80?
Well, I was gonna say like 8 and 9.
8 and 9. Who's closest?
8, 10,
8 or 9?
8.
I'd say 9, because 9 times 9 makes
81.
81. 9 times 9 is almost it. 9 times 9 is really close. That's just a little bit too
Big.
big. So underneath must be
8.
an 8. If we go looking for 80 in this list, here's where 80 would live, somewhere between those. So the answer lives somewhere between 8 and 9. With our 12's pretty close in the middle of those, so we guessed 3.5. That's probably pretty good. When we guessed 40, would 40 actually be a little closer to 6, or would 40 be a little closer to 7, do you think?
6.
A little closer to 6, because 40 is closer to 36. So maybe like 6 point, it won't be
6.
right in the middle, no. We said it's closer, 40 was closer to 36. So if we did go decimal on a calculator, it would be closer to 6 than it is to 7. So maybe like 6 point what would you guess? 2, I might go a little higher than 2 because it's like sort of in the middle. I might go 6.3, I don't know, let's grab a calculator and see. $6.324555532. How about 80? Would 80 fall? It's between 8 and 9 for sure, and that's all you'll be asked to do. But would you expect it to be closer to the 8 or closer to the 9? Closer to the 9. So if you were going to guess a decimal, maybe like anybody up for making a guess? Where 80 would fit into this world?
9.1.
Wouldn't be 9.1, so you got to stay under the 9. Maybe like in the 8.9s. I might guess 8.95. I mean, that's really, really, really close. The 80 compared to 81 is going to get us really, really, really close to 9. So let's see what the calculator says, because I don't have these memorized. $8.944279191. Something in there. How about 10? What would 10 be between 3 and 4? Because 3 times 3 came in a little too small. 4 times 4 came in way too big. But it's between 3 and 4. If we go hunting for 10, 10 would be in the middle of these. If I did pester you for a guess, the guess is going to be a lot closer to 3. So maybe like
3.9.
not 3.9. 3.9 would be really close to 4. 3.2 maybe, 3.1, 3.2, something like that. Because 10's really close to 9. We'd want to be really close to 3. So like 3.1, 3.2 maybe. I think it's 3.16 if I kind of remember this one. Yeah, it is 3.16. 227766. Weird little pattern, but it doesn't repeat that pattern. It just goes. Again, if I started to confuse you with me asking you to guess, you don't have to guess. What you do have to say is what it's between. So if you have any trouble with this, what you might want to jot down is all the perfect squares, because then you can just find them on the list. And if I drop in any number, you just figure out where it goes on there. So if I again said like 24, who would 24 fit in between?
60 and 25,
So your answer would be between
4 and 5.
4 and 5. So you just have to say which of these numbers we end up between. It has to be two numbers in a row to narrow the gap as much as we can. Otherwise, you would just say it's between 1 and 1,000, and I mean, technically that would always be right, but that's not a very good answer. How many homework problems do we have today? Somewhere between 1 and 1,000. That wouldn't be comforting. That's not the kind of story you might be able to tell you. Anything I can do to help you understand square roots at all? There's just a set, there's no letters. The set is TT. So TT, the first half of it, they are perfect squares, so you can give an exact answer. And then the last half, you say what it's between, so it kind of has like a double answer. The symbol, you never use the symbol on your answer. The symbol is for me to use to create a problem. Your answers are not going to have this symbol on it. So symbol is for book writers and teachers, not necessarily for students to write the symbols. Your answers will just be like plain old 8 or between 2 and 3, something like that. Can you shut it down on the record?